Welcome back, Bible lovers. Today we are going to walk through the incredible story of Elijah and Elisha. These two prophets of God lived during a time when the nation of Israel was torn between true worship of Yahweh and the false worship of Baal. Their lives remind us that no matter how dark the world may seem, God is always raising up voices of truth. And not only that, He ensures His mission continues by passing the torch from one servant to another. This will be a journey full of miracles, bold faith, loyalty, and powerful lessons. So let's begin. Before Elisha even entered the scene, Elijah had already made a name for himself as one of God's most powerful prophets. The name Elijah means, "My God is Yahweh." And true to his name, Elijah's mission was to call Israel back to the worship of the one true God. Elijah confronted King Ahab and Queen Jezebel, who were leading the people into Baal worship. He boldly declared a drought would come upon the land, and it happened just as he said. For years, no rain fell and famine spread across Israel. But even in the drought, God took care of His servant. He fed Elijah with bread and meat brought by ravens at the brook of Cherith. Later, God sent him to a widow in Zarephath, where a tiny jar of flour and a small jug of oil miraculously never ran out. Elijah also raised the widow's son back to life, proving that the power of God was with him. Then came his most famous moment, Mount Carmel. On that mountain, Elijah challenged the prophets of Baal to a contest. They cried out to their false god all day, cutting themselves, dancing, shouting, but no answer came. Then Elijah prayed a simple prayer, and fire from heaven consumed his sacrifice, the wood, the stones, even the water in the trench. The people fell on their faces and cried, "The Lord, He is God." This was Elijah, bold, fiery, passionate. Yet even this great man of God grew weary. After Queen Jezebel threatened his life, Elijah fled into the wilderness, discouraged and ready to give up. But God met him there, not in the wind, not in the earthquake, not in the fire, but in a gentle whisper. And in that whisper, God reminded Elijah that the mission wasn't over. He still had work to do. One of Elijah's final tasks was to find and anoint his successor. God told him to anoint a man named Elisha, the son of Shaphat. When Elijah found him, Elisha was plowing with 12 pairs of oxen, a sign that his family was wealthy. Yet, despite his comfortable life, Elisha was willing to leave it all. Elijah walked up, placed his cloak over Elisha's shoulders, and kept walking. That cloak represented the prophetic calling. It was more than a garment. It was a mantle of responsibility, authority, and spiritual power. Elisha understood immediately. He ran after Elijah and said, "Let me kiss my father and mother goodbye, and then I will come with you." But before leaving, Elisha did something remarkable. He slaughtered his oxen, broke the plowing equipment, and cooked the meat to feed the people. In other words, he burned his bridge to the past. There was no turning back. From that moment on, Elisha followed Elijah, serving him faithfully. Elisha's early years with Elijah were about learning. He became Elijah's servant, but in reality, he was more like a student or an apprentice. Elisha witnessed Elijah's boldness, his prayers, his miracles, and even his struggles. He saw that being a prophet wasn't about fame or power. It was about obedience, often in the face of danger. Through this time, Elisha's character was being shaped. He was being prepared to carry the mantle when the time came. Lesson: sometimes the greatest preparation for leadership is simply being faithful in serving. Before Elisha performed miracles, he carried Elijah's cloak, traveled with him, and watched him closely. When Elijah's time on earth was nearing its end, the Lord revealed it to him. He began a final journey, traveling to several key cities. First, they went to Gilgal. Elijah told Elisha, "Stay here, for the Lord has sent me to Bethel." But Elisha replied, "As surely as the Lord lives and as you live, I will not leave you." At Bethel, the company of prophets said, "Do you know that the Lord is going to take your master from you today?" Elisha answered, "Yes, I know. Be quiet." The same happened in Jericho, and again at the Jordan. Each time, Elijah tried to leave Elisha behind. Each time, Elisha refused. His loyalty was unshakable. When they reached the Jordan River, Elijah struck the water with his cloak. The waters parted and they crossed over on dry ground. Just as Moses had crossed the Red Sea and Joshua had crossed the Jordan, Elijah too showed the power of God over nature. After crossing, Elijah turned to Elisha and asked, "Tell me, what can I do for you before I am taken from you?" Elisha didn't ask for riches, honor, or an easy life. Instead, he asked, "Let me inherit a double portion of your spirit." This was bold. He wasn't asking to be greater than Elijah, but to be fully equipped for the mission ahead. The double portion was the inheritance of a firstborn son. Elisha was asking to be Elijah's true spiritual heir. Elijah replied, "You have asked a difficult thing. Yet if you see me when I am taken from you, it will be yours, otherwise not." As they walked and talked, suddenly a chariot of fire and horses of fire appeared, separating them. In that moment, Elijah was taken up into heaven in a whirlwind. Elisha watched in awe, crying out, my father, the chariots and horsemen of Israel." And then it was over. Elijah was gone. Elisha tore his clothes in grief, but then he noticed something. The cloak of Elijah had fallen. The mantle was now his. Elisha picked up the cloak and returned to the Jordan River. He struck the water and said, "Where now is the Lord, the God of Elijah?" The waters parted, just as they had for Elijah. The other prophets watching declared, "The spirit of Elijah rests on Elisha." This was the beginning of Elisha's ministry. Elisha's ministry was filled with signs of God's power. In fact, he performed twice as many miracles as Elijah, just as he had requested. He purified the water of Jericho so the land could produce crops. He multiplied a widow's oil, saving her and her sons from debt. He raised the Shunammite woman's son back to life. He healed Naaman, the Syrian commander, from leprosy. He made an iron axe head float, proving that nothing was too small for God's care. He fed 100 men with a few loaves of bread, foreshadowing the miracles of Jesus. Even after his death, Elisha's bones carried power. When a dead man's body was thrown into his tomb, the man came back to life upon touching his bones. The story of Elijah and Elisha is not just history. It carries lessons for us today. God always has a plan. When Elijah's time ended, Elisha rose. God's mission doesn't stop with one person. Faithfulness matters. Elisha's loyalty to Elijah prepared him for leadership. Bold prayers honor God. Elisha asked for a double portion. We too can ask God for big things, believing He is able. God empowers ordinary people. Elisha was a farmer, yet God used him to perform mighty miracles. Elijah prepared the way. Elisha carried it forward. Their story shows us that God is the same yesterday, today, and forever. His Spirit continues to work through those who are willing, faithful, and bold enough to believe. So when you feel unqualified or ordinary, remember Elisha. God can use anyone who is willing to leave the plow behind and follow His call. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share it with others who love hearing God's Word. Stay tuned for more powerful Bible stories here on Bible Lovers.